Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. Oops, hang on here. Okay, good. Thought I had my mic in the wrong spot. Anyway, it is Friday, uh, April 22nd, 2022. And tonight I will be talking about uh, fairs and festivals and similar events and connections to the paranormal. This is going to be the first part in a series on similar topics, I guess you could say. Um, and I think you all will see where we're going with this as this next couple weeks, these next couple of Friday shows go on. So, as always, you can find all of the episodes of the podcast at salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal at podbean.com. Thank you all for being here, whether you're listening to the live stream or the YouTube or podcast feeds. Always appreciate it. And I believe that covers everything for today. I've already mentioned the topic. Next week we'll be back to Monday. We'll do the news. Tuesday will be more stories of experiences. Wednesday will be another book review. I haven't really decided on what yet I'm going to review for that day. We'll see as it gets closer. Thursday is more stories of experiences. And of course, Friday will be the next part in this series. So, I've already posted a couple of links here in the chat, and this is almost in a way it's similar to the book reviews in that I'm going to try to summarize all of this as well as I can, but there's a ton to look into. But we'll see how this goes. So, let me get to the article here. Let's see here. Alright. I think I'll go to this one first. So, the one I'm looking at right now is, it's from, let's see here, encyclopedia.com, and it's basically it's an entry, and it's called Fairs and Festivals. And it really does go over, it talks about, it starts with the Renaissance, the age of the Renaissance, and it goes into descriptions because it does describe them as different things, although they can be similar. And I think they can both happen at the same time in some cases as well. But let me see here. So this article starts out mentioning that these are special events. These fairs and festivals are special events that broke up basically the cycle of the year. And one thing I've seen in a lot of cases is these would happen on key points in the year, um, whether they're astronomically related, weather related. Sometimes I think even both. And no, the fairs were essentially economic events, where there would be trade of items of basically there'd be commerce, there'd be trade of goods and ideas, and so that's how it basically describes. But then festivals were designed to celebrate a certain holiday or other special occasion. So, and these also gave people a different areas, regions of the world, and also social classes a chance to interact. And So that's where that's where that starts. It says that fairs became uh, a significant form of economic activity in the early, uh, basically at the early 1000s. I'm guessing AD. My cat is walking all around me right now, so that's fun. But and then a lot of fairs it said were basically outgrowths of towns' weekly open air markets. Then once a year, around the time of a local saints' feast celebration, or other religious, I guess, event, the market would be expanded into a multi-day event, and so that's kind of how the two would mix together. Hang on one moment. Okay, there we go. But then a few fairs became um, more larger events, major events that attracted buyers and sellers throughout areas, even throughout countries, and sometimes even from other countries. And so that started to expand the idea of these fairs, um, and then festivals. Of course, these would increase and decrease over time depending on just events in the world, um, depending on basically wars and other major, basically planet-wide events, major events that affected large groups of people. Um, so let's see here. So yeah, basically that's what it mentions about fairs. There's more. If you want more details, I would definitely suggest um, looking into these articles that I've linked here in the chat, and I'll include those also in the episode description. Uh, so, and let me see here. Um, so yeah, that's basically the first part of that first article. Let's see here. Hang on one moment. I just need to check on one thing. And then we'll get back to this. Thank you all for listening and for being patient. But this is this idea started as something else, and it kind of changed into this. Uh, and so I was really the research for this was a lot of fun in a way. So at first I was just going to look into um, amusement parks and paranormal events that happen there. But then I started looking. Basically, I ended up going back in time in my thinking, going uh, from amusement parks to the traveling fairs and carnivals, back to festivals way back in time, and so um, that's kind of we're going in the right order here, and so that's basically how this idea came up, um, and so that's why we're covering this now. So, but let me get to the part about the festivals because that's in there as well. In that one article that I've been kind of summarizing here, and so I'll get back to that. Let me see here. Oops, wrong link. Okay, so that was what I just finished summarizing was the section on fairs, just on fairs. So now we're getting into the festival section here. And this again, this article seems to start with I guess that time period of the early 1000s to 1100s to 1200s, and these ranged from, according to the article, sober church ceremonies to wild street parties. So there's a lot of purposes for these festivals, um, and the reasons why they were being celebrated. So, um, so that's a neat thing in a way. It's not just all one idea. Some festivals happen every year. Once, but some other festivals happened basically once, just one time, in honor of an important event such as um, weddings of political leaders or nobles, as they say in here. Um, and then some festivals in the Renaissance reinforced the order of society, while others appeared to be um, to basically go against that order at other times. And so, let's see here. I think it gets into some actual examples. And if not, I know it has. Okay, so it's still going into sections here. And that mention the social order. That mentions both religious and civic festivals were basically designed to show social order in a positive viewpoint and to make people feel safe and, and comfortable in that system. Uh, and mentions that there was a calendar of these holidays and festivals that was set up year after year without change, which it's kind of funny in a way because it did break up the day-to-day life, but then it also this happened every year, so it was its own kind of order in a way. Um, and some of these festivals, this is where some of the connections to the paranormal begin. In that some of these festivals mention or at least point to ideas of the afterlife, which um, basically, and so basically that these festivals were made to or designed to give give meaning to life and purpose to life for a lot of people, and then depending on their individual the views of the individual area or group running the festival. And of course, many of these festivals served multiple purposes, which such as church and state interests. Uh, um, says that sometimes local officials would take part in religious events, processions, um, and that would be for both of those reasons: the political and the religious. Um, and then these public events were also they also had some of the earliest, I think, processions, which of course that's almost like a parade in a way, and those are things that are still held today as well. It's mentioning more about the economics again. So, let's see here. And it also now in some cases the festival where there were some festivals that were devoted to promoting and keeping social order. There were others that were designed to do the opposite. And so there's festivals to do both of those things. Let's see here. Lost my spot. Uh, so some of these festivals um, were basically, like they said, like giant parties in some cases, and or flipped ideas of or systems, social order over and basically turned it upside down. Um, and it gave people a chance to do things during these festivals, during these times that they would never think of doing in ordinary times. So, um, and these festivals, it does mention these festivals of, they call it festivals of misrule, go back to ancient times, back to Rome, um, and mentions, and I think I've heard this name before, Saturnalia, which was a midwinter holiday. Um, and this is just one example of one of these festivals where masters would dress in their servants' clothing, and the servants would become the masters during this time. So, very completely different times during these festivals or events or ways of doing things and thinking. And also, this article mentions here uh, one of the festivals, one of the most popular festivals in the Renaissance was Carnival, which came just before Lent. This is again going back to the religious aspects of this, our festivals, and it was so just goes back to. I don't want to get too deep into it because I don't really want to get into religion a ton, just because that's not really the purpose of the show overall. But and everybody has their own views on all that. But it basically was the idea of having this party before uh, not being able to do that for so long. Basically, a time of celebration and of doing what people wanted to do before they kind of had to give up certain things for this particular time of year for their religion there. Um, and the unifying theme, it says, of Carnival was the world turned upside down. So, and that's basically where uh, there's more to this article here, but I think I'll end discussing the discussion for that article in particular. Let's see where we're at with time here. Okay. So, oh wow, I've been recognized. That's pretty amazing. Hello, APOC. Thank you for listening, and yeah, yep, that is me. So, anyway, let's see here. Article. This is the one about ancient festivals. This is from ancientsymbols.com. And this has a lot of different sections here. There's a few different sections here, from Greek festivals to, let's see here, Roman festivals, and even, I believe at one point it even goes into, so it has pagan festivals, and so a lot of different things in here. I'll just, I don't know, there's a lot in here to summarize. Let's see here. I think I'm missing it. Okay, so there's also there's Chinese festivals. This article here really does go into a lot of detail about all this, but I guess really the point that I want to make with this episode is that these festivals have led to fairs and almost as we know them, getting closer to modern times, and then leading to amusement parks, like I said. And there have been a lot of sightings of apparitions and different things around some of these amusement parks. So, but I guess I can go into some of the let's see here, some of the examples in this one article. Um, but uh, but yeah, so well, it does look like um, we have a guest that is wants to join. Um, so, and this is I've been talking with Jen about this for a little while, so I'm interested in hearing what she has to say. Hello, Jen. Whenever you're ready. Hi.
Hey, James. Yeah, I was about 10 minutes late. I had to go to the store and let my dogs out and stuff, but I'm happy I could make it in. And yeah, it's a very interesting topic. I've
Well,
been
thank you, and
listening.
no problem. Yeah, I just there's so many of these things. This one article that I was just talking about, it has like 10 different festivals, I think, or even more in it, from around the world.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
There was a ton. Yeah, I mean, like you're saying, I think that because everybody in the whole community would join in, it was like a some type of altering of consciousness for them. Like it is today, like everybody getting together for the same purpose. And it reminds me too of like you think about all the accounts of people having interactions with like uh, the other side, so to speak, like the realm of like the Fae, and they talk about all the revelry and everything that happens there. It reminds me of them bringing that kind of aspect into their mundane life in a way. And I wonder if some of those entities were involved, and it makes you think what took everybody over when they were having these types of moments, almost like a sort of like ecstatic state of some kind of madness. It reminds me of that and the kind of cutting loose that they would really, just completely let go of so many things and the things that they normally wouldn't do. I think that's really interesting too. You have these people who are living around each other in these villages, cities, and uh, little hamlets or whatever you'd call it. And imagine that you see these people every day and they don't usually act this way. And what they would usually, like what they would wind up getting up to by the end of or how sometimes these festivals would last for days. And I think that, and then imagine that they just all go right back to normal after a lot of these festivals. In a lot of instances, too, like with the seasonal festivals, it seems like, they're paying tribute to the cycle. They're trying to be in tune with the cycle of nature in a way. Like, I noticed that that was something that was kind of happening in many of the different festivals and the gatherings of sorts, like with the holidays. Basically, our modern holidays being based off a lot of these festivities. And I think that they're trying to not only give tribute to some aspect of um, certain beings or certain cycles of life itself, but it's as if they're trying to put their own consciousness in a way in a, in tune with the turning of the wheel of the year. And so you see that a lot. And then like with the carnival, it makes me think of carnal, like carnality, that people really like enjoying things that you won't, that if you enjoy too much, if you enjoyed it on an everyday basis, it might tear you apart. You might fall apart if you were enjoying that kind of lifestyle every day. So they had to like if they were gonna lay it on so thick that they could only do it for like a day or two out of the year. That's what it kind of sounds like
Yeah,
to
and
me.
also just made me think of, yes, all the people that know each other, but then you have people coming in from other parts of the world. What if some of those people that were there for some of these festivals and these fairs and whatever, they weren't even regular people? What if, like you said, what if
Oh
there
my
were
gosh,
different
yes.
different beings coming in for these festivals to either, maybe even in some cases, we know that they would some of these would be to honor certain mythological or religious figures. And what if any of these happen to be real and they happen to join the festival
Right.
and be there to watch all this going on, devoted to
Or
them?
if they, yeah, if they're in both in a way, like through, like that's how maybe it's the mass ritual of it is to get into a certain state of mind and to such a pitch that you're literally like kind of drawing that down, drawing it in from wherever it was through the ecstatic state. And we hear about this like in every culture, but there has to be like a almost like a beat or like a drum or some kind of music, and then you throw on top of that like all of the certain foods and drinks and everything, and then the sex, they were having a lot of that, and there's just all this stuff going on. And then a lot of times they were, like in Saturnalia, they would wear masks too to hide their identity so they could really like almost, I mean, you knew who you're, if you knew the people, I'm sure you know who it was, but they were, it's like they were trying to invoke it into or something. I have no idea, but it is very fascinating. I think there is a paranormal aspect to it, and I think that even to this day, that the same beings that inspired those types of cultural events are still inspiring it today. I think that from beyond the, the veil, so to speak, that they're still trying to have us to engage in this sort of in these festivities with them, or in this union with them through these cyclical mass parties that involve not just a small group of people, but whole big groups of people, maybe hundreds, maybe close to 1,000, a giant festival. And as it is today, it's a ritual when we have these types of experiences. People talk about like concerts. It's a big tribute, and there's likely that there are entities and beings drawn to that type of energy, as we were talking about with the amusement parks, when initially we were going to talk about that and then decided to go much further with it, because it appears that this is a constant theme throughout the entirety of like the history of mankind's societal existence. And I think it's interesting too about, you have the normal of everything, the normal day to day, and where they get the ideas for the type of celebrations that how they were celebrating. And it just seems like it is a giant ritual. It seems like it's driven from something, from, in some cases, like from beyond the normal reaches of the human psyche, like something is trying to draw them to celebrate in a certain way, and to really, and to participate in activities to such an extent as to reach some kind of state that they may become in union with them in some way. Like if you're like an ecstatic state, like for example, if there's a dance or there's music, eventually maybe there's a slight like invocation of these beings, and they get to commune with humanity in this way, and maybe even move things in a certain way, or maybe it's just, I don't know, a way to keep control and order too. I mean, if the governing forces were having everybody have such a tight uh, and such a tight way of living, that if you give them this one little bit, where they can really, then maybe it makes all the rest of it worth it, if they could be just more than they usually were, more than they ever would be in this group environment where they're getting to indulge in every conceivable passion in a way,
Yeah, yeah, and I think
you
it
know?
is. There's something weird to that whole idea too. Of yes, it's a break from the day to day, but then these things become annual, or even more than annual. They become regular events in themselves. So there's this looking forward to these events too, even when they're not happening.
Oh,
And we
yes.
have that now.
Yes, but it'd be predictable joy, like in the winter, for example, like all the fire festivals. We still kind of try to celebrate that today, but out of the gray misery and sometimes terrible times people in the ancient world would experience with the winter time and that season. And you, not to mention that season, the winter seasons have been kind of allocated, at least in the fairy realm concept, to a more malignant force in a way. They kind of saw it this way because, it was like a death cycle as they would see it. So out of that death cycle, you still have the hope for the sun with the fire festivals, and that the heat will come back, So they build this giant bonfire, and they'd build these, and I know that in Europe, they'd build these bonfires for I think it's oh, is it Beltane maybe? I'm not sure. I don't have it right in front of me or anything, but they have these big fire festivals, and they build these huge bonfires on the top of every mound. And so you'd see, like, from the sky, if you were flying over, it would just look like these sporadic, massive bonfires, and people gathered around them and getting up to all kinds of things, and then just having the hope for the time that it will end and that there's this will end. And so doing it cyclically like that, where they're doing it on a regular every year, I mean, it'd be amazing. I think we still have something kind of like that, but nothing, sadly, nothing to the extent of what they probably had back then, where they would really, I mean, because today there's all kinds of codes and stuff. But
Yeah, yeah. I just found here this one article mentions that these take place. This Beltane. I'm not sure if it's the one you were thinking of or not. It says it takes place around May 1st.
probably not.
Yeah, there's so many. That's the thing.
Oh, so
Yeah.
it couldn't be that. Where's the one? I can't remember what it's called because it wasn't part of the articles, but it just, I was, as I was talking about it, I was like, yeah, like that one Irish festival where they light all the fires. I'd have to think of what it was called because I wasn't, I don't remember what it's called. It's not, I don't think it's the Samhain thing, the Samhain thing, but it might be. I mean, I know that that was a fire festival
Yeah.
too, but there was some other, something with a C, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, the fire festivals and the winter festivals, like with the Saturnalia and everything, it makes sense to me that they were doing it to have hope and to be inspired. In fact, instead of it just being like this miserable state of cold and like or whatever, they'd really roll out, the food and the warmth, and I'm sure the alcohol and the festivities of the people getting together and all this stuff. And I don't know. I think it was a way to pay homage to the cycles, but then also too to remember that this is only for right now and this will pass too and there will be better times. And it would help them to remember that, I think. And especially if you could look forward to it, that it was
Right.
predictable.
Yeah. And also a reminder, going back to the idea of the seasons kind of representing life and death. That's winter. That's the one that's kind of used to signify death. That would be a direct tie again to what comes after that. Where do we go after that? And then the idea of fire. What there's all kinds of things with that in terms of it driving away the cold, driving away the death, maybe. Um, there's really a
Mhm.
lot of different ways to take a lot of these things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so. It's very inspiring. I wish that we'd get up to the same kind of stuff today. But I think that the way that society is set up, it's interesting to think these people would live around each other. In some cases, I mean, maybe not, maybe I'm mistaken, but it seems like they would, imagine that for generation after generation, they'd be around the same families in the same towns, things like that, and celebrating these festivities. But I think the big thing that stands out to me, I think, is that I do think that perhaps the spirits of those people themselves or the beings that inspired it do still want people to do this. And maybe sometimes you're overtaken, like sometimes even to this day, like people, I don't know, like if they were swayed to celebrate, that something overcomes people, there's some type of energy that comes over people that, and they just release so much, I don't know, so much passion that's usually kept wrapped up really tightly. And it's a chance to do that. And I think that that's what it's at the heart of it. I think that's what it is. It's like just to really let off some steam in a way. And that it's a natural thing that people should do so. And I think that it's amazing that they do it when they're doing it in this mass group and with a purpose behind it and they have a good reason. It gives it even more reason to do it, especially if they have a good excuse, you know, or out of obligation, perhaps some type of obligation. There could be even old oaths that might tie into this, where they promise, kind of like with the story of, well, there's so many stories in mythology, but like where there's an exchange of like we will give you recognition or we will pay homage to you in exchange for this. It may be something like that going on. I mean, where there's an agreement that we will like we will do a revelry in your honor in a sense, and you can feed off of that energy, and we're feeding you and we're feeding ourselves, and there's this type of special communion going on with the unseen world in that way, perhaps.
Yeah, because some of these festivals, that's the other thing too. I noticed is there seem to be the two types. There are the ones that are more like parties, or more revelries and just more fun in a way. But then there are some that are more serious and somber, and also where they do sacrifice, um, living beings. A lot of times animals, but if you go far back enough, they did that with people too. Sacrifice people too. So
Yeah,
that's there's yeah.
they say that. Oh, that thing with the animal thing. I was thinking of that. I heard that a lot of the idea of the church picnic initially, like the kind of the a pig on a
Mhm.
stick, like a pig roast type thing. Have you
Yes.
seen that? But they'll
Yeah.
dig out the ground. And anyway, I've heard that that kind of started from the basis of the ancient animal sacrifices, and they kind of just mixed that together to kind of blend the cultures so that they could blend literally the cultures, the societies that usually wouldn't get along. It's a way to be like, look, we do the same thing, but just a little different. And then it lost its significance that it was an animal sacrifice, the pig on the stick thing. And it became more of like just a picnic, but I think that there is something to that where even to this day, we still participate in many of the same with this, a very not knowing it perhaps, but that it has the same significance. And if you're aware of it, I mean, you notice. And the thing about the sacrifice thing is it's, of course, it's going to be myth. So, I mean, and it's a very we've really cleaned our hands of the whole process of in every way. And I think that it was a way of honoring the act of what they were doing. So they weren't just eating a pig, but there was a respect, and it was a sacrifice to give up. That animal was special, chosen, and would give nourishment to the people. So it wasn't just any old pig; it was a special pig,
Right.
that kind of thing. So I think that I don't know, or something to that effect.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this has gone on for going as far back as ancient times through the Renaissance, like that one article said. And then next week we'll get into talking more about the last 100 years or so, where I guess we could probably go specifically toward the U.S., the development of fairs and festivals and carnivals, and cover that next week, I think. And then the week after that will be more of the amusement parks, because that's a whole other thing. That's like a year-round festival, but then what are they really celebrating? So yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yes, that'll be so much fun. I'm looking.
yep. No, I'm well. Thank you for joining me today. I think that pretty much covers what we were going to talk about overall, without going into further into the future, I guess you could say. So, but yeah,
Mhm.
thank you for joining me, and I think that'll do it for today. So, looking forward to next week.
Awesome.
You too.
Well,
You
have
too.
a good evening. Thanks for having
No problem.
me. Bye.
And so yeah, and thank you all for listening. I really appreciate it. Like I said, this has been a lot of research um, to get this going here, because I've just known little bits of and pieces of things here. So if I'm looking at the chat here, thank you all for being here. Lily says even in biblical times, the best of the herd was a sacrificial offering. Yeah. So a lot of things, a lot of this is stuff that's been happening, I think, all throughout time and all around the world in one way or another. So hope you all enjoyed that. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back on Monday night with the news in the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care, everyone. Good night.